So, hello, everybody. For me, it's the first time. Can you guys hear me? Great. So, for me, it's the first time to do this. It's the first time to speak to invisible people. So, I'm sorry if it's a little bit awkward. It's great to see all of you. So, I have a list of questions that some of you sent, and I will try to answer. I will try to do my best. I'm a little bit afraid to mispronounce some names, so I'll just read the questions. Apologize for this. But before I start to do this, I would like to thank all of you for your attention. And well, indeed, it's very special in these times. So many things have changed, and we are at home, and there are no concerts, and we just have to be patient. So it's great that at least somehow we can be in touch and share some thoughts and messages, and we can communicate. So first question, or rather message, is from Frank Taylor. He runs a non-profit organization, Music to My Mind. And Frank asked to give a brief message about the importance of music during this time of the pandemic. I can say how it feels to me. Well, music is a part of so much important part of my life. It's a part of me. But I must admit that it's difficult for me, especially during this period, to listen to music somehow. Of course, I practice. It's very important to stay in shape. I practice. I get back to some repertoire that I haven't touched for a while. I try to be serious about playing, and of course, but it's difficult for me to listen to music a lot. Somehow difficult to listen to even one piece from the beginning to the end. I don't know. This period somehow is all about silence for me, at least. And after so much travel that I had lately, this silence is quite important as well. So I'm trying to appreciate it as well. I know that people have different approach, and many do live concerts, and some of them are wonderful, very interesting. And it's great. I mean, everyone deals with this situation as they can. For me, I just prefer to stay, silent somehow. Yeah. So, but yes, music is obviously important, and it's great for our souls. Onward. So I'm going to pass a happy birthday message to one gentleman whose name is Jason. So happy birthday. Apparently this gentleman came to my concert, maybe even more than once. So best wishes of health, especially during this special and difficult times. So please stay safe. Many people asked about tonguing. So, how to explain with a few words? Well, usually during master classes, I say 2 words, soft and slow. Slow because, well, it's easier for us to control what's going on. And soft, I think, when if we master to play on piano, then for us it will be easier to manage louder dynamic as well. So I'd say pay more attention to the low range and just be patient and play really slowly. And when you practice slowly, try to even the T's and the K's. So especially pay attention to the K sound. Just use your ears, and it will definitely bring a good result. Don't be in a hurry to play fast. First, learn how to walk, and only then try to run. That's very important. Yes, how to play fast and clean? Well, first of all, learn to play slowly. Another question is about the routine to study and improve. Well, a routine. I don't have any specific routine, and obviously I warm up, but not very long, maybe 5-10 minutes. And then without playing any etudes, I start to work on my solo repertoire, which I will be using later on stage. So, but at first, my warm-up consists of playing a little bit of Clark on the low range, those things. And then I would play some flexibilities. And then I would play some arpeggios to the higher range. Not very high, I'm not a high tone player. So there are my colleagues who can answer much better questions about high notes. And once I feel comfortable, I would start working on the pieces that I have to prepare. And I would not play from the beginning to end unless I want to test how it feels. But after having played it for a few times, usually it becomes clear which spots in the piece are the risky ones, kind of the weak links. So then you just need to work on those spots and make them better. Again, soft and slow. That's my way. I shouldn't put that phone away because there are other questions here. How many hours to practice? I rarely skip practice days. I try not to. I prefer to say always better even 5 minutes than nothing at all, just to warm up, so that the next day our embouchure will feel that it's not cold, kind of. But usually I would say maybe a couple of hours, and I try to do some breaks, of course, some rests. You have to carefully feel your embouchure, and if you can feel that you're getting tired, well, it's already definitely a time to make a break. I prefer to say better not enough than too much, because if you over practice, then you have to deal with recovering, and that takes time. Usually it's not a nice process, especially if this period is before your performance. About the circular breathing, there was a question how I started. Well, I was explained this technique by one trumpet player who was a former student of Timofey Dokshitzer. And at first I started to practice with a straw and a glass of water, and I would blow and make sure that the bubbles won't stop. I learned that. And then I switched to trumpet, started to try. Well, took some time, of course, until I could do it. And then when I felt comfortable, I started to use this technique in my performances, only when it was important not to break the line, because it's just another tool for expression. The circular breathing is not, one shouldn't do it for the sake of circular breathing. It only helps not to cut the musical line. So and then the next step was to learn how to do it on staccato. That's another thing. It's more complicated. It's managing your, it's about the management of your K syllable. So when you do circular breathing on staccato, you have to make sure that your Ks are not too hard, because if they're really, how shall I say? Usually when you do tonguing, you make sure that your Ks are strong enough, but when you need circular breathing, they actually have to be soft, so that it's more like a ta 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 rather than ta 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 ta. So like this, the throat is not completely covered and the air can still pass. So you just have to try it. If you don't try, well, nothing will happen. So I will finish with those messages first, and then I will start reading, because I can see many of you are writing. So I will try to give it enough attention. A gentleman from Finland is asking when I'm coming back to Finland. Well, as soon as possible. There was a concert planned in, I forgot the name of the city. Right now, it escaped my mind. In Lahti, yes, I remember it. And unfortunately, as well as many other concerts, it was postponed or cancelled. I don't really know, but as soon as possible. I must say that for me, my one of my first trips abroad from Soviet Union was to Finland, and it was a very memorable trip. That was back in 1990, so quite a while ago. About the most difficult piece I've ever played. I must say that there are some pieces that I have recorded that I never played on stage because they're so difficult. It was easier to record, well, because of course during a recording session you can, when needed, just stop and have a rest. On stage, well, no such, there is no such luxury, and also very often you have to also rehearse the day of the concert, so which means that you cannot really deliver your 100% from stage, but just what's left. Yeah, and of course on stage one has to feel safe. So from the pieces that I have recorded, well, obviously my father's arrangements of Saint-Saëns Introduction and Rondo Capriccioso, as well as Hummel Bassoon Concerto. So these are the two pieces that come to my mind. On stage, well, one of the pieces that I played live, a really tricky one, was the Haydn's D major cello concerto. The C major one I play quite often, but the D major I played only twice, and now I can say that it really requires enough practicing and preparation beforehand, and one cannot compromise with such a piece because it's both high and really low, and there are many pedal tones, big jumps, and intonation is quite tricky because flugelhorn is from its nature is not an instrument in tune, so one has to really give it enough time to master it somehow. So, am I doing okay so far? Because it's my first time. I will start reading the questions. If you just give me a little bit, just a few seconds. Okay, tanging, okay. Favorite piece to play? Well, I like to play chamber music lately. We have this partnership with Maria Mirovic, a great pianist from Belgium, and we play together for many years, and we really enjoy making music together, and always, how shall I say, it was always a great experience. And there are projects for the future, and there are some ideas about Mozart and Beethoven, so very serious. But one particular piece, let's say with orchestra, I really like playing Tchaikovsky's Rococo variations. How many minutes play and rest in my routine? There was a period when I had serious endurance issues. I have overplayed, and then it took me a while to recover. So at that time, that was my father's idea, because for many years I was traveling and practicing with him. He was surveying my practice sessions every day for many years, and this was his idea to try to practice with timers, really to have it under control. And back then, I remember I was, I think, playing 7 minutes and resting 5 or 7, something like this. But this is so personal. It's difficult to, let's say, it's not right to advise this particular way. One has to find what suits you personally, you. Right now, I practice without timer. I just and I do a lot less rests because I have to be ready for some difficult rehearsal sessions, because, well, I cannot say to the conductor, Maestro, excuse me, please, but, I need to rest 5 minutes. So it doesn't work like this. So lately I was practicing maybe less hours, but with less rests as well. Somebody asked before, I remembered another question, if I have met Timofey Dokshitzer. Well, as I said many times before, and I will say it again and again, he was my first and my main inspiration as a classical trumpet player, because when I lived in Soviet Union, we didn't have access to other recordings easily, because it was a closed country back then. But obviously it's not the only reason, because he's, first of all, to me it was always like this. He was first of all musician and then a trumpet player. He was really, with his trumpet, he was singing from his soul. Really a unique musician. And his recording of Bach preludes was the one that made me choose this path to play classical trumpet. If I have met him, yes, I have met him. For the first time, I met him when I was 10 years old. I don't know how, but it was possible for me to play for him. I remember with my father, we came to his apartment in Moscow. I played for him a little bit, and the idea of my father was that maybe he could take me as a pupil. But it was a delicate situation because my official teacher back then was the former student of Timofey Dokritzer, and so he decided not to do it. And well, it never happened, and I was learning from listening to his recordings. And some of these recordings up to this day really inspire me so much. And of course, later I discovered other great trumpet players such as Maurice Andre and Rafael Mendez and Wynton Marsalis, Håkon Hardenberger, Reinhold Friedrich, and many others. And this was a very important time. I'm choosing questions. Favorite etude? Well, I don't play etudes. I'm so sorry. If I enjoy still playing a Ratunan concerto? Yes, I do. It's the most famous trumpet concerto of 20th century. It's so well written. It's bright, it's romantic. It's comfortable to play also. I love the piece. What can I say? If I ever played a non-classical music, okay, that's an interesting question because maybe it can be curious for you. I don't know how to improvise, but for me it was fun and a big honor to participate in concerts with my jazz colleagues for special projects. One of them is as a fantastic jazz horn player, French horn player, Arkady Shilklopper, who played for many years in a great ensemble called Moscow Art Trio. And so I played some of his pieces, some of his songs. And later I met Till Brunner, I can say my friend. And we had a very special project all over Germany, and we toured a lot. And I didn't have to improvise. He was doing this. I was playing written parts, and all the arrangements were done for us by the famous Gil Goldstein. And we also had a very interesting ensemble, a very interesting setup. There was Till, myself, Gil on the keyboards and accordion. And there was Dieter Ilk, bassist from Germany, and a jazz cellist from Germany, Stefan Braun. So they were all also helping a little bit with the. Stefan was helping a little bit with percussion sounds as well, and there was a lot of Brazilian music in this project, and I still hope that together with Till we can do it again, maybe in other countries as well, because musically it was quite interesting. So we sort of tried to move from each other's worlds together, and I think we succeeded. It was fun. A question about flugelhorn. When I tried it for the first time, I think that was in '93 when I was at the Antoine Courtois factory. I just so much loved the sound, but there was no repertoire. And then my father started to think what he could arrange. Then I discovered the 4-piston flugelhorn, and then I started to use it in concerts. It's a great instrument, and of course it has a bigger range because it has 4 pistons. But also one can play below the official range. One just has to give it enough time and attention to play it in tune, which is not always easy. So I don't know if it's any interesting, but that's the official lowest tone, but then you can start to play pedal. Also, I'm using a very deep mouthpiece. Maybe you can see, it's almost like a French horn one. So, which makes it more comfortable to play low, but well, in the higher range, it's absolutely not stable. So, and it has a very big bell. Somebody was asking what kind of model. So this is the older version of the 156R. And now the new one has this part round like this, and the bell even a little bit bigger. This was the first prototype of this flugelhorn with a bigger bell than usual. And I must say this was my father's idea to ask the president of the Courtois company back then, Jacques Godet, to try to build a bigger one. So this was the first one. And now, if you are interested, it is possible to get this updated model, which is a wonderful instrument as well. It's not the only maker, not the only brand who does 4-piston flugelhorns. I feel at home playing mine. You definitely could try others as well, and then you can compare. I have this bond with this instrument already since many years. I'll try to go back in questions. About pushing on the lips while playing high tones. I don't really push much on the lips. At least I think so, because I saw many colleagues of mine who have a very, very strong mark on the lips, and I don't think I have a big one. So probably I push less. I was lucky. I never changed position of my embouchure. I don't even know if it's so-called correct or not correct, or the way how I breathe. But after playing trumpet for so many years, I don't think I will change anything. I try to play as natural as possible. I try to be efficient. I try not to spend too much energy. And well, about the breathing, I don't know in general, because sometimes I'm asked how I breathe. Well, there is a great video where I think the most virtuoso trumpet player of all times, Rafael Mendes, is speaking about breathing. And he says that when we play, we shouldn't breathe any differently from when we just speak. So when we speak, we don't really think how we breathe, we just breathe. And I think in most cases, maybe it's good to be natural, at least in what I do. I don't know, if your breathing doesn't prevent you from music making, I say that's the most important. So for me, I often breathe with my nose, because this is how I usually breathe, and then. But of course, if I need to play much louder, then I would first of all feel the bottom part, then the rest, and then I would play. But I never was breathing like this. There are trumpet players who play great doing that, but I never did it, and I'm not going to change. Yeah. Singing phrases or anything with study could be helpful for us. Definitely, because when we sing, we don't have this barrier. Usually, it comes out more naturally, even if we are out of tune. So it can give us a more clear idea how the line shall go. Okay, an issue of a tongue that moves slowly or spasms very fast. No, I never had this issue, but again, play slowly. Maybe this can help. Another question, if I play piccolo trumpet, I prefer to say no, but last December, for the first time since the last, I think, 10 years at least, I played Handel's Let the Bright Seraphim on piccolo, which was given to me just for that concert by my colleague Kirill Soldatov. This was a Scherzer piccolo, a wonderful one. And yeah, I try to do my best, but I don't feel at home with this instrument. This range is not comfortable for me. I feel better with low tones. I must say I have two piccolos at home. One of them was given to me as a gift by Vladimir Spivakov, great Russian violinist and conductor, who supported me a lot when I was a kid. And another one was given to me by Patrick Selmer. I remember I went at the time when I was student with Guy Touron in Paris. He went with me to Selmer office, or was it factory? I don't remember. And he chose a piccolo for me. It's a wonderful instrument, but kind of heavy. Good sound, but heavy to play. So I used it for a very few concerts, but then I just thought I'd rather listen to my colleagues who play this instrument beautifully. Then I'm a very grateful listener. Do I often change mouthpieces? I should say no, because for so many years I didn't change anything. It's just during the last half a year I was trying to play with a new setup. As maybe you could you could see that I have this new instrument, Italian made by Antonio Rapacciolo. It's a great trumpet, and also has a new mouthpiece. So I was trying new setups, because I played my trumpet, my old Courtois, which I still love so much. I can show you. It's here. It's an old model, 303R. It was built at the beginning of the 90s, and all my recordings I made with this. All except the first two. That was still Getzen. And then, since my trumpet is getting old and don't have a spare one, I thought, okay, I want to try something else, but I didn't want to try something which resembles my old one. And just for fun, I wanted to try something completely different. Well, it's a very, very different trumpet made from nickel and bronze, and totally different feeling. Feels different. Well, first of all, color of sound is different. It's a very bright and easy to play trumpet, and I must say, much easier for the high range, if anyone is interested. But again, if you're curious, you should just try. Any exercises, that's a question in Russian, any exercises to do in order not to push too much on the lips? I didn't do any really. One just has to pay attention. But when I was a kid, I remember sometimes just to test myself, I was putting the trumpet on the piano, and then without touching the trumpet, I would just try to make sounds, just to see how high I could go. I don't know how much this helps, but I don't know. I think the best way is just really to pay attention and to have your corners firmly set without, moving them. The question, if I will save the broadcast, I don't know how this will function actually, because I'm helped at this very moment by two friends of mine who manage this page, and probably they know better. So maybe it will be saved. About music making. One has to listen to many different instruments and lots of different music styles. And one should not be focused just on trumpet. Yes, trumpet playing can be really addicting, as we all know. That's why I guess most of us right here, we love it. But there is so much more in music. To me, trumpet is rather a tool, an instrument which allows me to express myself. Because the music is not born inside this thing. It's a great trumpet, great instrument, but the music is not born inside. It's not even born in our embouchure or lungs in our body. I think this idea of music, first of all, it's in our mind or soul. Depends how you prefer to think. First of all, there should be this idea. We need to know how we want to sound. We need to know what we want to tell, what kind of music message we want to deliver. It's like when we speak, first of all, we think before we want to say something, and only then we say. It's not some random words that are coming out normally, because otherwise it's not going to have any sense. So the same thing in music. We need to imagine and decide how we want to sound, what kind of color. We need to decide where the music line goes, which is the direction, what is the climax point, and we just need to decide and then try to kind of paint it, what we imagined. What do I think about practicing with the mute? Well, these are difficult times, and many musicians have difficulties to practice at home because of the neighbors, because there is this time of confinement. So for many people, simply there is no choice. Whether this can affect, yes, it's not ideal, because I think the center of every note, at least with most mutes, it changes location. For me, when I play, I imagine each note is like a target. So in order to play clean, we need to kind of shoot in the middle. And if we use a mute, then those targets will slightly change position. So one has to be aware. But I think it's definitely better to practice with the mute than not to practice at all. That is definitely how I think. When I practice in the hotels, I often use Harman mute because, well, I don't have a specifically made practice mute, I must say. Again, about etudes, I don't play etudes, I'm sorry. I discover many etudes while doing master classes. For example, I must admit that Charlier, number 1 and number 2, I heard during master classes. The other ones, I still have to discover. The same with Arban. This is our Bible, I understand. But I kind of know the end of that book, but not really the beginning. But I think if you know the end, the beginning should be okay as well. So, thank you for all of your kind messages, by the way. I'm not reading all of them, but really, really touching, really. One gentleman is writing that Carnival of Venice is representing me. Well, guilty. I often play that piece, and still now, sometimes I insert it in my concert programs. Musically, it's not an interesting piece for me at all. It's has become like a mark on me a little bit, and I try to avoid it, to avoid playing this piece too often. The difference with my younger years is that I feel somehow more responsibility to play it now. And well, I still have to practice it. Again, soft and slow at times. And by the way, there goes the question about nerves and this stage fright. Last year, sometimes I was feeling this. It's related with this feeling of responsibility and this wish to give really my best when on stage. And well, the audience, they don't really care if you haven't slept enough, if you have some personal issues, or you have ate or over practiced. Of course, they always want the best from the artist who is on stage. So, and also nowadays, every concert feels like a live recording because so many people are filming the concerts with their cell phones without asking permission, and one cannot avoid it, I guess, and this is how it is, but there is a little bit of additional pressure related with that. But what I can tell you is that if you want to feel more secure, try to be as well prepared as you can. At least your conscience will be more calm. This definitely helps. And then just try to focus on the music. So focus. Yeah, focus is really, really important. Which modern trumpet concerto I like the most? I'm proud to say that there was a great piece written for me by one German composer whose name is Jörg Widmann. And I performed this concerto called Ad Absurdum many times. And it's a great piece with, I think, a little bit of a jazz flavor. Sometimes it sounds like one crazy long jazz improvisation, but everything is actually written there, and it's a very challenging piece, not only for the soloist but also for the orchestra. And even when that piece is played twice slower, because sometimes I heard practice sessions of the orchestra, it's still interesting to listen to it. Great piece. A very interesting question about arrangements of string of pieces written for a string instrument. Whether we have to follow the performing tradition. I usually try to imagine the sound of cello if it's a piece written for cello. I try to imagine the sound of cello, yet there are certain colors that we have which cellists don't have. So by playing an arrangement, of course, it's a very big responsibility not to make this music worse. Where is this fine line where it's accepted and where it's not accepted? I think it's the question of taste. But very often when I play an arranged piece, I imagine the sound of this particular instrument for which the piece was written. Yet not exactly the same. And there, of course, I have to say that music is an abstract art. We can't really touch or see, we just feel it. This is great, by the way. It's all about what we feel. So we feel something and then we try to pass on this message. How did I practice Carnival of Venice? Well, slowly. What mouthpiece did I play on piccolo? When I do play on piccolo, I use the same trumpet mouthpiece. If I was not a musician, what profession I would have? First thing that comes to my mind, maybe a sound engineer. About the posture, how I hold the instrument. I heard this question quite often. I started to hold it low from the very beginning, and I think one of the reasons was that when I was a kid, it was simply heavy for me to hold my trumpet. So, and then another reason is that it depends on how our teeth are, because some people have their lower jaw more in front, some not. And in my case, for instance, these are the teeth, and the upper teeth are slightly bit in front, which causes a natural angle of the mouthpiece to be like this and not straight. So then the trumpet goes this way. If you want to have your bell up, of course, one could compensate, but if I try to do that, then somehow I start to feel tension here. So again, I play the way how it feels natural to me. There are players who have even lower position, but I don't think it has to be so much about how we look when we play. Lately, there is too much attention to the visual aspect of performing, which absolutely I don't like that. I see greetings from my native city, so привет. It's very nice. When I learn a piece, okay, if it's more about intuition or not, or I studied, well, I think both. First of all, when we open a score, there is some sort of message which the composer left for us. Well, we have to try to respect it, first of all. Then I think this is stage one. And when we get familiar with the work, when we get more familiar with the piece, then maybe we can discover something which is behind. Because if we would stop at stage one, then everybody would play the same way. It's not like reading a newspaper just with information. And there is so much more underneath, and then after all, this is how we see and how we feel it. But it's quite a process, and with years after playing the same piece, it will be just evolving. And when I listen to my older recordings, it's difficult for me to listen to many of those, because I just discover smaller and bigger details which start to irritate me. Like, why did I play like that? It absolutely doesn't have any sense, something like this. How do I stay consistent? Mistakes happen. Of course, everyone is a human being, but when we practice, we should not and we should never compromise with the quality. If we definitely hear a mistake or some imperfection, we have to drop the tempo and we need to start to play slowly. We should always choose the tempo at first, which we can fully control. Of course, sometimes we need to try whether we can play faster, and at times maybe when we prepare a certain concerto to perform on stage, certain risky spots we should maybe try to also try to practice them even faster than needed, so that at the moment of the show we should feel confident and we should not be too stressed. But no excuses. It's either good or it's not. It's not okay, it's all right, it's not in or something. Okay. There is no okay when we practice. So if we know that we can do better, then we should. And to help us with this, sometimes we need to record ourselves, to record our practice sessions. I see some friends of mine saying hi from different places, from Tel Aviv, for instance. So, greetings. I don't play any other instrument than trumpet or flugelhorn. When I was a kid, I played piano for 3 years. I was okay, as my parents told me, but I wasn't good. I wasn't as good as my sister was at the same age. So I was quite a disappointment for my parents. That's when my father suggested me to try the trumpet. So he took me to see his friend trumpet player, and yeah, this is how it started. And then very, very soon afterwards, I had a spine injury, a very heavy one. And I was during several months at the hospital, just laying down. And when I was out of the hospital, still for half a year, I was not allowed by doctors to sit down. I could stand up or lay down, but not to sit. So I was so happy to quit my piano lessons because I absolutely didn't like it. It was boring, and I could see that my piano playing wasn't making anyone happy at all. There I say I really love to listen to piano music, and I really love piano, and that's why I don't play it. I have a huge respect for piano. And I listen a lot more to pianists than trumpet players. And maybe you should as well. Simply a lot more music. Piano is the king of all instruments. It's like an orchestra, all in one. So much literature and infinite, really. If I had any doubts about myself while practicing, I have tried certain arrangements that my father wrote for me that after some practicing, I had to realize that it just doesn't work for different reasons. Maybe too demanding physically, not enough rests, or if to change too much, then you totally destroy the piece, or too uncomfortable, or just the color of sound doesn't fit. Different reasons. One has to be honest with oneself, and because the final result should be the music itself. And if the music suffers a lot, then no, just do something else. Choose another piece. Circular breathing and double tonguing again. Try soft K sound, soft K syllable, rather than. By the way, is the sound okay when I speak? I didn't see any complaints. Thank you. Okay, computer games. Okay, I was guilty of playing World of Warcraft for more than 10 years. Back then I had less concerts and I had more time, so not doing that anymore. I play another game now called World of Tanks. It's a very addicting game. Don't play it. The Grand Russian Fantasy, if I've ever played it. No, not myself, not in concert. I definitely tried it during master classes, but it's not a very interesting piece of music for me. Among the variations and the showpieces, the ones which are played often, these are the 4 pieces by Jean-Baptiste Arban, obviously Carnival of Venice, variations on Norma, Fantasie Brillante, and variations on the Tyrolean song. So these 4 pieces I've played. I played Napoli a few times. and maybe something else I forgot. How do I balance technique versus music practice? It should go together. The technique is there to allow yourself to express correctly what you feel. How do I say when I use triple tonguing? Well, I do, and then you should be able to control it, whether you want it softer or more dry. It depends how you hear. Again, most important, an idea of the sound that you want. About Napoli, I have not recorded it. I only played it in concert. About contemporary pieces, to judge in general, I don't have the right because I simply haven't heard everything. It's like also in romantic music or classical music. Certain pieces touch you or make you interested or make you feel something special, and some other pieces simply don't. So I'm curious personally, but it's just a different language. And in the world of the contemporary music, I consider myself really the beginner because I haven't played much of it. And also it's different. So there are contemporary composers who write in such a way that before actually this score you have several pages of explanation what marks means what, and then you have classically, so to say, written pieces with maybe melodic lines easy to understand and easy to feel. Depends. Yes, about the concert in Lahti. I hope I come soon to Lahti. I was also very sad to learn that it's not happening. If I like to play Shostakovich piano concerto, yes, I played it many times, and maybe the same amount of times of Carnival as the Carnival of Venice, if not even more often. Even though this piece is mainly written for piano, still the trumpet part is so important, is that work. And this is one of the best pieces written for our instrument. And for me, each time it feels really special. If I will come back to Italy, definitely yes. I have never performed Moto Perpetuo live, no. If I listen to other artists, I listen to many musicians. If the question is about trumpet players, lately I listen a lot more to jazz trumpet than classical trumpet. And I started to discover jazz music through Miles Davis. And the interesting thing is that it was not one of his early recordings, but actually it was those were two albums that he did in 80s, Tutu and Amandla. And that was at the time when I still lived in Soviet Union. And back then, I was a proud lover of classical music, and all the rest for me was like, not. I wouldn't never listen to pop music, for instance, back then. Now I can sometimes. Back then, no, I was very conservative. But somehow I got hooked, and it caught my attention, and I was listening more and more. And then through these albums, I discovered great players who worked with Miles Davis, and then I started to be interested in their recordings. So I discovered, of course, Marcus Miller, Joe Zawinul, Wayne Shorter, and so many other, Herbie Hancock, and so many players. And then kind of my interest for jazz started to expand from Miles Davis. And then I discovered, of course, earlier recordings of his. And yes, but I remember also first time I heard Bach's Groove, I didn't know how to react, because I thought, but he doesn't play clean, and he even didn't bother to empty the trumpet of water and all. How is possible? Now I'm laughing at myself, of course. Classical trumpet sometimes, and number one for me still would be one of the recordings of Timofey Dokshitzer. Of course, I love many other recordings as well, and when I discovered Maurice André and Wynton Marsali's pure genius, what can I say? Rafael Mendez and others. It all had a great impact on how I imagined playing trumpet, and also it had a great impact on the sound. Because of course, when I started, I tried to copy Timofey Dokshitzer, but on the long run, copying is a really bad idea, because copy is always worse than the original. So we have to absorb as much music as we can when we listen to also other instruments, and then slowly our true self will start to come out, and that's the goal, to find yourself. So now it's already an hour since I'm soloing here. It feels a little bit strange for me, and I think for this time it feels like enough. And I would like to thank all of you for watching. And if you would like this to happen again, maybe please write a message, and I will try to answer your questions. So I wish you, first of all, to stay safe, great health, keep on practicing, get better. And I hope that this difficult period will be over soon, and we can meet in person. Maybe not necessarily like a stage audience sort of relationship, but maybe some master classes or festivals. It's always very enjoyable. So good luck for all of you, and thank you for your attention.